You know, there's times when you turn up into a shoot and you're in a room and you're like, wow, this looks amazing. The light, or the way it's kind of squeaking through a gap, or the way it's bouncing off something, it just looks so cool and so interesting and kind of really inspires you to shoot. Well, that's what you can do with the Amaran Spotlight. You can create that yourself. Today, we are looking at the Amaran Spotlight SE projector modifier for your Bowens mount lighting. This is a really impressive light modifier fixture that I really highly recommend everyone go out and buy. Now, I will be doing a full video on about how you can use something like this to really upgrade your lighting. There's many different ways you can use a projector mount like this, whether it's adding some interest to the background or using it to get light to where you need it to go, but that's a video for another day. Today we're just going to see whether this particular projector is worth considering over the competition. So what makes the Amaran Spotlight SE so special? Well, first and foremost is the price. This is one of the most affordable options out there if you are looking for a projector mount for your lighting. There are other ones out there on Amazon, like with Godox and Newer. I think they make a few as well, but they aren't built to the same quality as the Amaran. The main reason I personally went for the Amaran, other than the price, is its size. It's actually one of the most compact options out there. If you look at the more expensive options from Aperture and the others, they are a lot bigger, even for lights with smaller fixtures. Now, they do come with bonus features. They have things like yokes, they have perhaps better control systems on them. But if you just need something that is small and fairly lightweight to travel with, this is probably one of the best options. I needed to be able to travel with this light fixture. It's something that I'm taking with me everywhere. I want to be able to put it into my camera bag because ideally with the glass, I don't want to be putting it into the hold luggage. So I want to be able to take this with me as a carry-on. It can compact down to a small enough size that effectively it's similar to a 7200 from Canon as an example, and it will fit into my camera bag alongside my lenses and other equipment. As you'd expect with a spotlight, you can just do so many creative things with this sort of light. I will talk about that more in a future video, but that is its USP compared to using just a standard Bowens mount reflector that you get with the lights. You can do so much more with one of these. You can cut the light, you can shape it, you can get it to exactly how you wish so that you can really create some interesting backgrounds or make sure that light isn't spilling everywhere, which is a common problem when using reflectors that come with the lights. Soft light like this is excellent for doing interviews and very, very useful, but sometimes if you want interest, that's when you want to have hard light, and that's where all of this comes in. You use these cutters on the side to adjust the shape of the light to get exactly how you want, and then you can also place in a gobo in there, and this comes with a load of different gobos, which is great to see. They're standard size, you can go out and get more if you wish, but actually what they come with is more than enough, I think, for most people, so you can add a bit of interest, and then just by using this dial you can zoom in and out to get a different look. So if you want it to look slightly blurry and out of focus, you just use the knob on the side to adjust the level of focus of the light. The Amaran can handle up to a 300 watt light. That's the maximum you can put through this. Probably if you put any more in, it's going to probably melt. So that's a warning to you right now. But to be honest, that is great. That's more than enough power. And as I say, there's not another one out there this compact that can handle that much power and heat. The build quality is very solid. It feels very well made. It's pretty much entirely metal. Even the knob is metal, and there's not really much that can go wrong on this thing, I don't feel. It's certainly not refined, and I think that's probably the biggest difference between this and the more expensive options out there. This is pretty rugged, it does the job, but doing fine adjustments isn't going to be that easy. So that does lead me on to the bad, and well, that's the first thing I'll mention is the fine adjustments. The biggest problem I have with the Amaran Spotlight that is if you want to make small fine adjustments, perhaps maybe you just want to adjust the level of focus, it's very difficult to do. Because of the way it's made, you end up going too far one way or another, and because all the weight is just on the Bowens mount as well, it does end up wobbling the whole system quite a bit. That's the big advantage of going with a more expensive system with a yoke. But then of course that's going to be a lot larger as well, so there are compromises either way. That, I think, is probably the biggest negative with this particular setup, really. It's just the fact that when you start using it, and if you start adjusting it or knocking it, you are going to see movements, you're going to see wobbles, which can be very frustrating if you're trying to adjust something very quickly on set. Partly what doesn't help with that is the fact that all the weight is at the front of the spotlight. That's because all the lens element is at the front of the unit, so it means that the weight is always pushing forward and putting strain on that Bowens mount. Now the lens actually is removable, so you can take it out, make it easier to travel with, so you can pack it into different compartments if this is too big, for example. But it's also so you can swap out for different lenses as well, so you can get a different projection depending which degree lens you're actually using. Now the one I got, I went with the 19 degrees, and to be honest, that is pretty tight. Unless you're shooting in a big space, I would actually recommend you go for the 36 degree over the 19 degree most of the time. If you can have both, that's great, it gives you loads of options, but certainly if you're only going to go one or the other, I would go the 36 degree, as I think there'll probably be more situations where it would work. I find with the 19 degree, it is a very small projection unless you can get the light very far back, and in certain circumstances, that's just not possible. You do get a little bit of fringing as well, and that can be frustrating if you're using a bi-color LED light. It's just something to note when you're using it. I think this is just a common problem if you're using any sort of COB chip where you have strips of the colors of lights rather than kind of a random pattern. So that's more down to the light you use really rather than the projector itself. The cutters, they work pretty well, but as with the knob on the front for adjusting the projection, it's just very hard to do fine adjustments. They're quite stiff and you move them around and adjustments aren't as easy as you'd like or hope to use. I also find they're quite limited. It's probably because of the compact size. When you want to do a very fine slither of light and you're using the cutters, sometimes you end up going too far and actually you see the other side of the cutter coming through, and actually it's very difficult to get a very slim strip of light on certain occasions. So that's just another thing you need to be aware of with this particular spotlight mount. The final negative I'll sort of mention as well is because of the way the focusing works, you'll notice that if perhaps you're shooting across something that is flat, say for example a bed, you may find that at the front of the bed, the projector is actually in focus, while at the back it will be out of focus. And you get this kind of weird going from in to out of focus, which of course isn't very realistic and what you'd expect to see when actually, if it was natural light coming from a window somewhere. Now, of course, this can be helped if you can get the light further away, so maybe that's an argument for using a 19 degree and just getting the light perhaps outside even and projecting back in. But it is a frustrating thing in occasions where you want to have the light at an angle, you want to hit a flat surface, and you really do see the fall off of the focus of the light beam, which kind of just ruins the illusion a little bit. So I just recommend being cautious about how you do that. Generally, I'll just cut it away using the cutters so that you don't get that noticeable shift in the focus. What's the competition for this light? Well, I've mentioned a few already, but really it's a case of either going for other cheap options out there, like from the likes of Godox and Newer. And to be honest, I've played around with those ones in the past and they're not great. They really don't project very well the light through, and you just don't get much power out of them, and they're not as well made as this one right here. The other option is to go more expensive and also much larger, and going with the aperture or nanlight options that are out there. I haven't tried them myself, but I'm sure they are very well made. They look great, but they are a lot bigger, and I think that would be a problem for a lot of the shoots that I particularly do, just because they'd just be too large to travel with. If you need something that's just compact and small, well, this is really, I think, the only option you can go for. Who is this for? Well, I think this is great for anyone doing commercial, corporate work, and especially anyone doing any sort of interiors or real estate. That's the main reason why I got this. I wanted to make my interiors look more interesting. I wanted to add extra elements of light within the frame, just to really kind of just give a bit more interest in a wide shot of a bedroom of a hotel. And this really does that. Sometimes the daylight just doesn't want to play well with us. Sometimes you're in a part of the building where you're not going to get the sunlight in at the right angle, or you've got to shoot at a time of day where that light doesn't come into the room. Well, that's where this comes in, and you can just add those nice little elements just to really make the light look really interesting. You know, there's times when you turn up into a shoot and you're in a room and you're like, wow, this looks amazing. The light, like the way it's kind of squeaking through a gap or the way it's bouncing off something, it just looks so cool and so interesting and kind of really inspires you to shoot. Well, that's what you can do with the Amaran Spotlight. You can create that yourself. And I think that to me is the biggest reason why you should pick one of these up. It really does give you sort of this magic option to create some really cool looking scenes that you just otherwise wouldn't have been able to in most situations. I hope you have found this video useful. If you have, then please like and subscribe, as it massively helps. And if you want to help me out even more, then why not pick up the Amaran Spotlight using my affiliate links down below, as that obviously helps the channel out massively as well. Do make sure you subscribe, because I will be doing a full video very soon on all the different ways that I use the Amaran Spotlight on my interior shoots. In the meantime, why not check out some of my other light reviews, such as this one about the iFootage light, which is a very impressive, compact, bright LED cob light.